This is our second lecture for the web development, and we finished our last lecture when we were talking about the domain name server. So domain name server is a server which help us to find out the exact IP address of the web server for the name of the web site that we want to use. And then we can ask our domain name server, which can give me the IP address of that google.com and translate into the actual IP address. And actually, the machines itself, the computer system, networking devices, they don't use the name www.google.com. They use the IP address to communicate because that is what is required. And because as a human being, it is difficult for us to remember, we can only remember more names, psu.edu.sa, www.google.com, but we cannot remember those IP addresses. So we have a domain name server which help us to translate the names into the IP address so that our machines can communicate between the with the servers. Okay, so what happened here? First of all, if you are open a new computer which you have never used, you have never opened the psu.edu.sa, then it will make a request to the domain name server. So how that computer will know about the domain name server? So that is actually provided by the ISP, your internet service provider. Okay, so internet service provider have the domain name server's IP addresses. So first he get that IP address for the domain name server and then send a request that I want to translate www.psu.edu.sa into the IP address so that you can give me so that I can communicate with the server. So once he gets back the IP address, he again generate another request using that IP address to the web server of the PSU and then get back the answer, and that it will be show that web page on the browser screen. Okay, so this is what happened. What is next? So if we already have used one time, we already get that information. So we have the concept of the DNS cache, domain name server cache. So rather than every time I open the www.psu.edu.sa and then ask the DNS or domain name server to give back me the IP address, what we do, the normally we are using a lot of at one time, at 1 week or 1 day, we are using some uh, websites quite often. You know, nowadays if you are in the registration process of the uh, your courses in this semester, then maybe you are opening more psu.edu.sa. In other day when maybe you are making more you making more searches on the web, so you are opening quite a large number of websites, and then what happens once you don't know, your computer does not know the IP address of that website, then it will make a request to the DNS server. But if what happened after that, it will save that information, the name and the IP address, in their local storage, and we call it a DNS cache. Of course we don't save everything. For example, maybe we can say 100 or 200 websites we save because we are quite often opening those websites quite very regularly. So it will save that DNS information or the IP address information inside that cache. So every time you don't need to go to the DNS server. So that is the purpose. It will have a limited number of websites with their IP addresses, just like a local register for the domain names of these websites. It maintain that, and that coming based on your opening, which websites you are opening more. Okay, based on that you can get that information from the DNS cache rather than domain name server. So again, we already have opened the psu.edu.sa website. Now we don't need to ask the DNS server to give me the IP address. I can ask, get those information from the DNS cache and send back the request, and we get back the page again. Okay, so that is the purpose of the DNS cache. What is a URL? Universal Resource Locator. So it is more like trying to find out some specific file or the resources. File can be maybe a folder. We are trying to find that on the internet, on our remote, because this IP address represents the psu.edu.sa. And then inside we are saying that we are looking for the English version, not the Arabic version. But then inside we are looking for the CCIS, the College of Computer and Information Sciences. And inside the CCIS files and the folders, we are only looking for the IS page. So that is our universal resource locator. Okay, that will help me to locate a specific resource file, or the it could be a file, it could be a PDF, it could be a web page, it could be a image, it could be a audio, video. So we can, so this is the URL that we normally use in our address bar inside our browser. Okay. And then again, remember that we talk about the protocols in the yesterday. We say TCP, IP, and HTTP. IP is to uniquely identify the two computers in the network of jungles, or jungle of networks, because billions of devices has been connected. So how I can identify? So IP, internetworking protocol, will help me to identify uniquely one computer or two computers on the internet so that they can communicate with each other. So client also has its own IP address, the server has its own IP address, and using those IP address, we are trying to make a connection or identify these two computers. And then using the TCP, we establish a dedicated connection between the two computers. And then after the TCP has been used to establish that connection. For example, I give the example yesterday as well. So if you want to call someone to your friend, so then what you do, you punch his mobile number in your device, or you can look into the contact and call. When you make a call, okay, so that number is to identify a unique other mobile. IP, mobile number is IP address. And then through, when you dial that number, then actually it establish a connection through the mobile towers and the networks. It establish a dedicated connection between your mobile and the mobile of your friend. That is TCP. And then after that, you are communicating, you are transferring the voice communication happening over there. Okay, so here inside the web, what we normally do, we have the websites, we have the pages, HTML pages. So for that one, we have the HTTP, Hypertext Transfer Protocol. And HTML pages are the hypertext actually. Okay, so we will discuss more about the HTTP, what it is, how we can create those things. But HTTP is a protocol which we can use the rules and regulations that we will use to communicate or to transfer from the server the pages back to the client. IP identify two computers, TCP establish the connection, and HTTP actual communication is happening between these two computers. Mobile number can be considered as an IP address. Okay. And again, remember what we do. We don't remember the name or the numbers. We remember the name of our friend. We can just go into the contact, search for that one, dial them, and we don't even look at the what is the number itself. I remember in the past when we don't have these mobiles and the things, uh, there are few, very, very close friends or maybe very, very close relatives. You quickly remember those names, numbers, but not everyone. And then there is a, with your just beside your telephone, there is a directory. Is a copy where all the numbers are written. Oh, yeah, I want to go call Uncle Feroz. Okay, you can go and check that. Fine. Okay. So HTTP request and response, everything that is happening on the internet using the hypertext transfer protocol, actually, everything is an HTTP request and response. So we call it HTTP request and HTTP response. Again, we also have some other protocols for email communication, for file communications, SMTP, AP, POP, 3, FTP. So all these are the protocols which govern different types of the communications over the network. For the web pages, we have the HTTP. And for the files, we have the FTP, file transfer protocol. For the mails, we have like all other protocols written down here, they are related to the mail, smart mail transfer protocol, or the internet mail access protocol, or the post office protocol. So they are being used that govern the communications for the email between different computers. And of course, browser, where we can see our websites that we are going to design in this course. We can see there are hundreds of browsers, if not millions or thousands, but there are hundreds of browsers which are exist. Okay. So mostly we will be, we will be using the Chrome. We also have the Firefox for the, we also have the Mac, Safari, and then so on. So, there are a lot of number of, and then here again, the evolution. Someone asked me what is a web 5 and web 4. So actually web 4, web 5, they're also the same kind of a technologies which are based on the web, and then you can map always between the HTML1, HTML2, HTML3 with these web technologies. Okay, so that is an evolution of the web technologies throughout since 1980 and 1990. In 1989, when the advent of the the internet started and the world wide web started. So since then it has been gone through different type of evolution from one version to the next version with the more improved. So what is the difference between what you can say that in the HTML5 and HTML3? Okay, in the HTML3, if you want to play a video or if you want to play a audio, then you have, you need to write a lot of different JavaScript code and things and so on. You need to create a customized visual component in which you can see that and the things. But in the HTML5, what happens, rather than you write all that boiler code again and again, you say, okay, they give you just one tag. And in the background, they have written all those things more efficiently and more effectively. So we have a audio controller tag. We can just add it, just tell which file you want to run, and it will control everything for you. So that is a difference. So we try to the things which has been more become more popular, rather than these programmers write those codes again and again by themselves. We have the newer version of the HTML or the new technologies. They have provided the built-in functionalities for those kind of most popular services that normally people implement inside the websites. So these are the differences. Of course, they try to make it more efficient, try to make it more secure, because we are living our very personal life nowadays on the internet. So we have all our financials connected, bank accounts connected. So we try to make is as much as possible to secure those personal informations, health information, financial information. Okay. Then we have a next type topic is the three-tier architecture. So three-tier architecture means that we have three layers. The first layer that normally the users or the clients can see is the presentation layer, the visual, the output, and with that web page the users can communicate, users can uh, interact with it. Okay, so when they are interacting, they click on a button, they can give some input, in the input field and so on. So that is the presentation layer. Then we have the application layer. The application layer is more like the layer in which the business rules has been implemented. For example, if you have implemented or if you have created a online shopping system, then in the online shopping system you show different products to the user, and then when you want to add into the card, it will add it into the card. It also show that you can increase the quantities, how many quantities you want. It will also calculate the actual price that need to be paid by the user and so on. So all these are the of course, it is still in the presentation layer, but in the background, we are calculating, we are doing those calculations. And once the users say that I want to buy it, so that background things starting happening in that one, where we are implementing the business logic. Once we receive the order, we need to confirm the payment. Once the payment is confirmed, we need to send that order to our warehouse so that the warehouse can start processing, start packaging or thing, and then dispatch it to the client. Okay, so background implementations, all the system, all the business logic is being implemented in the application tier. And the data tier, when where we are saving the data, and that we will also see in this course, because as I told you, this is the full stack development, starting from the front end, from basic structure using the HTML. Then we have the styling with the CSS. Then we say how we can make it more interactive using the JavaScript inside the front end, inside the browser, on the client side. And then we come back to the server side. We write the server side scripting in the Node.js, and then we also connect with some databases and so on. Okay, so we will, so data Tier mean where you are actually saving that data. We user make that order. It has the product number or product description, how much quantity it has, it is paid or not, what is the status of that order inside the warehouse. It has been in the process of processing it, packaging it, dispatched, yes or no. If it has been dispatched, then it will update the the tracking id and something like that. So all this data, where it will be saved, it will be saved in the database tier. In the data tier could be a database management system in the mysql, oracle, or the postgres, or there are a lot of them. Or it could be a cloud database like the MongoDB or the Azure. We are using Azure Data Services or the AWS and so on, where we are saving the data. So depending on the implementation details, this data tier could be different. I mean, the everything which it save the data. So it is local inside the database management system, in the files, or in the cloud. Wherever it is considered as the database tier. Presentation layer, application tier, where we are implementing all the business logic and the processes and the things. And then finally we have a data tier where we are saving all the data related to all business logics, products that we are selling and buying and so on, how much we have, how much quantity we have in our warehouses and so on. Okay, so three-tier architecture make things faster. How? Improve scalability, improve reliability, improve security. Faster, it means that for example, we have a very big project and big website that we want to develop for our company, and then we have one team, maybe 5 6 people who are good designer. They are working on the front end. How aesthetically it will be beautiful, it will be more interactive. They are defining, they are designing the user interfaces and the user experiences. Then we also have another set of people who are more programmer rather than the designer. Design part will become from the designer part. So we are dividing our team into the multiple sections. One section which is designing the visuals, the other section which is implementing those visuals in as our web pages, HTML, CSS, JavaScript, and so on. And then we also have another tier which is making the implementing the business logic. So we divide the work into the multiple teams, and then those teams are working separately, and then we can just integrate all those works together to make our full website. We can also have a database tier team which is actually building and designing the database designs and so on, making them secure, making them scalable. Scalability means that if our website is being used by one user or 1 million user, it effectively serve those number of the users, doesn't matter how many they are. Scalability, we can scale from low number of users to the very high number of users. Is it possible? Yes, it is possible, but we need to make sure that we are designing our application in such a way that the scalability factors are there. Reliability means that whenever user type our company.com name inside the browser, our system should be available. That is a reliability. The fast response is more like the efficiency. Reliability means that when I say www.google.com, it is the number one thing. It is like the fast. It is very waiting 5 minutes after it's load the page. And the other thing is, it is never be say. I mean, we can't say that it is always available. There's a 99.999, and there's a very less chance that it will be unavailable. So reliability means whenever I want to access it, I can access it. That is a reliability. So I can rely on that website. Okay. Security mean that whatever data, the personal data, because if the user is logging into that one, it is buying the things from there. It also giving the financial informations like the credit card numbers and so on. So it want to make sure that this information are safe. Okay, so security, so we need to have that security. And because we have different experts, dedicated teams which are managing all different tiers, programming and so on, so we can implement that security point of view as well, especially the data part. In the data tier we need a very high security, and whenever we are sending the information from the client from one computer to the other on the path, we are trying to implement some encryption mechanism so that we can secure the data over the internet as well. Okay. Again, web server or the websites, they are the presentation tier. Application tier is the housing business logic used to process the user inputs and so on. What are the internal processes which are happening? And then we have a database tier where you are having the all the data which is stored. So if you, as in the beginning of the, yes, yes. Look, when you say website, everything is important. In the front end, if the design is very poor and the users are not very attractive, and then the interactions has been designed very poorly, the user will be fed up and then it will go away. So that is also a very important part of the website. Business logic, we need to process those things, we need to implement those, we are processing the order, we are sending into the warehouse, we are tracking that at which stage that process is, so that we can update to our users. So they are also very important. So you cannot say that one thing is more important as compared to the other. If you have a very good database design, and then you have a very poor application server which actually implementing all those things, what is the purpose of that good database design? Because we are not managing it properly. If we have good database design, we have a very good application server where we are managing all those things, processes and business process very accurately and very efficiently, and then we have a very poor UI and the UX or user experience design. Users don't like your website because of that experience, which are horrible experience that they are facing on websites. So again, the user will not continue with your website. Even you have a very good, excellent design in the backend, but front end is not very good. So everything is important when you talk about the websites. Okay. So I mean, it it again depends. Sometimes you feel that I'm a more programmer, then the application tier is where you need to work. Sometimes you say I'm very good at designing the visuals, then the front end is the best place that you should go and work over there. If you think that I am good at designing the databases and security of the data and so on, then the database tier. So again, depending on your what you can say that expertise, your interest, you can decide where. But if you say that which is important, it everything is important, especially when we are talking about the applications. Doesn't matter it's a web application, any application, mobile applications, desktop applications. So we have all these three tiers over there as well. We have the front end where we are designing the user interfaces and user experiences, then we have the application tier, then we have the database tier. So all three tiers are everywhere. Wherever we have a computer system, we have these three tiers. So they are all important in terms of their importance in that system, whole system. Okay. As I told you in the beginning, that web server is just a computer system or the computer program which is running on a more powerful machine. We call it a web server. Otherwise, we can or we will be running when we design our websites here in this course. We will be running our web server in our laptops or in our desktop computers. So web server is just a program which is running in a specific machine, and then it also has the because it is a project, and inside that project we have a main function file, and then that file can access everything which is inside that project. So we have a file structure: images folder which contain the images, video folder which contain the videos, the CSS folder which contain the CSS files or the styling files. We have a scripting files. We also have the other files, the HTML files. So that is a structure. So again, remember we said at www.psu.edu.sa, then we have CCIS, then we have the EN, so the EN, then CCIS, then we have the IS. So actually, that is the folder structure on that web server. And root is the root serve folder where everything is enclosed. Okay. We also have the cloud computing and the mobile computing, different type of the frameworks and the what you can say that the companies exist which can provide you that. You can also do some development over there. If you are, I mean, I am also teaching another course, which is the Flutter mobile application development. So you can, uh, in the same YouTube channel, you can also find that video lectures. So you can go there if you want to interested, then you can do that. And at the end, these are some references for this lecture that I have used while building this course. So that's all for today. And what we can do tomorrow. Tomorrow we have an online class. Okay. So that's all for today. And thank you very much. Let me stop the video.